Okay, so we're on live right now. Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, so we're just gonna pin a small message for you guys. We're just waiting for Kristen to come on board today. So hi, I see every the little waves, but hi. We're just gonna double make sure that Kristen is on. So we are waiting for Kristen Hernandez to come on. We are just, if you have any questions that you would like to share with Kristen, she will share some. But basically, if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask, you're free to write them in the comment, and we will get through them all as well. Just gonna see if Kristen is on board with us. I believe she is. So she should be with us shortly. Hi, Kristen. Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Amazing. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us on our Dermadry Live. So I see everyone is giving you some love, giving you some hearts and waves. So this is really good. It's a pleasure to finally meet you also, finally.
I know. It's so funny, like we're virtually meeting
Yes.
for the first time.
So just to let you know that we have already questions that came in. There are questions that are coming in also in the comments that we'll ask you, and you'll be able to share your story. So everyone, welcome Kristen Hernandez, who is an hyperhidrosis advocate. So Kristen, before we begin, can you kind of just explain to us your story and what inspired you to become an advocate for hyperhidrosis?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kristen Hernandez. I started the blog, How to Hyperhidrosis. What really, I guess, motivated me to start the blog was just the fact that I was kind of frustrated because I would go to doctor's appointments and it was like, I feel like I know more than the medical professionals that I was going to meet. And growing up, there really wasn't a resource for me to go to. I didn't have anything. The internet and, research was like fairly new. And so the blog kind of, after like a few years of therapy, came out of like me trying to find my voice. And I really just started making the blog, creating it, like the website in itself, the creative process was really fun. And then I just kind of clicked the button to publish, and I was like, oh, shoot, like, what am I getting myself into? Like, like the idea was essentially like for me to be therapeutic. And then obviously I hoped that, there's other people out there and like my thoughts weren't my own type thing. And so that's kind of where that started.
And I know the journey has been very long when it comes to hyperhidrosis, but what kind of impact has hyperhidrosis had on your life?
I feel like what hasn't, where hasn't it impacted my life? Like, if you think about personally, like every day, the second I wake up from the second I go to bed, I'm just drenched in sweat. And so that already sets the tone for my day where it's like, okay, I got to do this. Like, I just got to handle it today. And sometimes that can just be extremely exhausting. And so just getting ready for the day, like the socks, the shoes, everything, there's so many details that go into just trying to make yourself feel comfortable throughout the day while you're
Mm-hmm.
sweating that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, personally, again, it's just exhausting. And
Mm-hmm.
then socially, I always felt like I couldn't be present when I was
Mm-hmm.
with people because in my head, I was so worried about my sweat. So I'd be smiling and probably on the outside, I'd be enjoying myself, but I
Mm-hmm.
was just worried the entire time.
Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of also questions coming in to explain how, is it normal to feel that type of weakness in your hands and fingers when it comes to the treatment itself? The questions itself right now are
Mhm.
going up and down, going from the treatments to
Okay.
your story.
Okay.
But now we're going to kind of switch over from the storyline and go into a bit more the questions that are coming in because I know everyone is kind of saying, my question, my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Let's go.
So we're just gonna move forward just with that. Yeah,
Okay.
so there's somebody asking now, is it normal to feel a bit of weakness or tingly sensation in your hands or feet when they're using the treatment?
Yes, the tingling is normal. You obviously don't want it to be uncomfortable. That's like the main thing. You want to
Mm-hmm.
have a level that you're comfortable with, that you can sit with, and then
Mm-hmm.
you'll gradually increase this. So I started on my hands at one level of the voltage or the current, and then
Mm-hmm.
I gradually worked up to that. And your body will get used to it, and it's important to do that so that you can sustain, you know, the reduction in sweat that you want or the results that you want,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you know, your body is now, you know, working to reduce your sweat.
Mm-hmm. And there is another question coming in. What is the minimal advisable like age when it comes to starting iontophoresis treatment?
I think it's, is it 15 or 16? I'm not exactly sure if, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so yeah, not an issue. So for those viewers that out there that are looking to use iontophoresis treatment, you can use it at the age of 13 and over. However, in the United States, it can go into kind of 18 to 21 using it. However, we really make sure that it's always with the dermatologist that they kind of go over because there are rules and regulations that need to be followed as well. So it's
Mhm.
really clear to when they have to kind of follow the dermatologist. They know their medical history and so on and so forth. So they could kind of give them the waiver for
Mhm.
that.
I was actually about 14 years old when I first tried iontophoresis.
Iontophoresis. Exactly.
Um,
Was it your dermatologist that recommended it?
it was a dermatologist I went to, and it was just kind of like, well, I heard about this, you should try it.
Exactly. So for us, it is usually 22 years old
Okay.
specifically. However, and over in the United States. However, like you said, if your dermatologist kind of gives it to you at 13 years old or 14 years
Mhm.
old, there shouldn't be an issue as well. They know your medical history, they know what
Right.
works for you. So for the viewers out there, please make sure to make sure that you're following up with your dermatologist or medical expert.
Exactly.
There is another question that comes in. How long did it first take you to see the results? If you want, you could kind of know, I know a little bit about your story, but
Right.
kind of share that story with the viewers, explaining your first experience and then your second experience using iontophoresis.
So my first experience, again, around 14 years old, they're like, hey, there's this machine. This is a medical professional that's telling me, I don't really know much about it, but I've heard that it's used for hyperhidrosis. So we
Mm-hmm.
purchased it. Um, and that was about it. They're like, I think you should maybe do it for like an hour on your hands, feet. Like that's the only thing
Mm-hmm.
at the time that they had. And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but I didn't know what current or voltage to start at. I didn't know any of that. And at the time, they didn't have all the safety features. So, like, it was extremely uncomfortable. You're talking
Mm-hmm.
about tingling, but like, this was actually painful. And then, come like 20 years later, when I had the opportunity to try Dermadry, and I was hesitant because I had like not a so great experience in the past. But I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? Like, let me just try it. You never know. And I was like so surprised. I didn't realize like how far these machines have come, the advancement of the technology. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing was like the support from Dermadry. What I love like so much about it is like I can read the entire manual, but if I'm in the middle of treatment and I'm like, oh shoot, like I have a question, I can just go onto the chat and ask, and they respond so quickly and they can give me an answer. And so my experience now, I started to see results within, I'm not kidding, the first week. And I was like, this is normal. Because I think it varies for everybody. But within the
Exactly.
first, like, second week, I was already seeing results. And I was like, all right, like, this is good. This is good. And so consistently, I've just been progressively seeing better results for me. And, like, I was like, oh gosh, should I wear this shirt today? Just because I was like, I don't know. But, like, my underarms are not sweating right now. So,
Yay!
yeah.
That's amazing. And thank you very much for sharing that story. And now, you kind of explained a little bit previously about the tingling sensation,
Mhm.
but there are questions that are coming in when it comes to just kind of explaining a little bit your pains when it comes to relating to sweat. Was it hard to get a job, the dating life, the social life aspect?
Mhm.
Kind of, how did that take a toll on you?
I mean, I'll tell you that like I wouldn't be in the job I am now if the job description said I had to put armband. I work in the ER in a hospital. So if my job description literally said like you're gonna put armbands around someone's wrist, I would have been like, no, next job. But of course it
Mhm.
doesn't say that. It just says, I do registration, so all the like administrations type stuff, descriptions in my job application.
Mhm.
And so I got to my job and I was like, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to put like almost like touch people with my hand. How am I gonna do this? Like freak out. And then,
Mhm.
you just learn how to do it. Like I got used to doing it and you find
Mhm.
ways where like you don't actually have to touch their skin type thing. And now it's just like if I had avoided this job because of that, this is like such a great job that I love, and it also motivated me to go into the path that I'm going now, which is physician assistant. And if I had not taken this job, I don't know, like you don't know like what opportunities may have come.
Mhm.
And then, in relationships,
Mhm.
I mean, I remember having a partner that wanted to hold my hands, and I was like, no. And they're like, do you not like me? And I was like, no, I do. I just don't want you to touch my hands.
I know when it's all moist and you're just like, no, like I'm okay. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. And then also just opening up about it. I mean, it's a very vulnerable position to talk about hyperhidrosis. And like I remember with friends, I would just say, oh, I have this condition where I excessively sweat. But to go into like everything of hyperhidrosis, to go into like how much it impacts our life, it's a lot. And
Mhm.
so opening up about that in my relationship has like always been a difficult thing for me. But in my relationship now, it's like it's okay, like I knew that, and this wasn't something I've been together with my partner for 11 years.
Wow.
And I started going to therapy probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And it wasn't until then that I really started to talk about it, not just with my
Mhm.
partner, but with my family and opening that conversation. And now it's like, it makes it so much easier just having that open conversation.
Mhm. And that's something that we're also working on. And like I got to speak with you and your story, and we know it is that taboo topic that that topic that nobody kind of wants to speak about. And that's why we're so glad that we have you on board and kind of to spread that awareness and to build
Mhm.
that safe space. I think that's a really, really great aspect to bring in. Um, Going into that, actually, the question, why do you think there is this taboo topic? You kind of touched
Mhm.
upon it, but
Mhm.
it's just such this big question mark,
I think, that's a good question.
right?
I honestly
Good job,
sometimes feel,
viewers.
yeah, honestly, sometimes I feel like I always imagined people saw me the way I saw myself.
Hmm.
And I saw my sweating as gross, disgusting, like all these like terrible things. That's just how I processed my experience with it because it was always so stressful or embarrassing to be in public. and just be sweating all over the place. And like, you're not naturally, you're probably like in a good mood, but then you're like sweating all over and you're like, it ruined my outfit, it ruined, you know, this and that. And you start to associate these negative feelings with your sweating. So I constantly always felt that my hypersensitivity about my sweat, so knowing that my hands are sweating, knowing that my feet are sweating, that other people could see that too. And most people don't pay attention to your feet if they're talking to you up here, but in my mind it was like they can see it all. They can see it all. And to some extent, yeah, people do notice and people do comment, but there's a point in your life where you just kind of have to decide, like, do I want to put the energy and, you know, into just giving hyperhidrosis, you know, your whole life, because it consumes you. It can very easily consume you and give you like tunnel vision where that's all you see. But then like life passes you by and it's like, I want to be present for, you know, certain events. I don't want to have to be worrying about my sweat all the time. So it's just like a gradual, I think, learning game of just embracing your sweat so that you're not worried about it all the time.
Exactly. And is that why you led to become an advocate for hyperhidrosis? I know we kind of touched upon it at the beginning, but for the viewers that jumped in, there was that question that came up again. So was that kind of the reason what led you to become an advocate for hyperhidrosis?
I think it did. And I also wanted, I think for myself, I wanted to prove like I can do this, because there's that record that plays in my mind where I always say, I can't do this because of hyperhidrosis. I can't do this because of hyperhidrosis. And hyperhidrosis became like this physical being that was stopping me from living my life. And so it was just like, no, I like after therapy, I like started to realize like I can do this. You guys can do this. I just may do it a little bit differently than the average person because there's all these other things I have to manage, you know, in order to get certain things done. And that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I always wanted to like fit in and be normal, but then I realized like embracing who I am and, you know, the uniqueness that we all have is just more important and makes you the person that you are. You don't want to have to like, you don't want to be the same person as the person sitting next to you. There's something that stands out about you, and embracing that is important.
And thank you very much for sharing that aspect to you. And we really appreciate your voice, and I think it's really important for the hyperhidrosis community. There is another question that came in. How did you feel when you first told your family and friends about hyperhidrosis?
So growing up, my family always knew that I sweat excessively, but again, it wasn't a conversation that I wanted to have. I wasn't ready for that conversation. I was still trying to understand what was happening to my body and why I was feeling so miserable all the time, really. And with my friends growing up, it was just like very matter of fact, like I have this condition. And it was probably a few years ago where I kind of was sitting with my family and I just kind of broke down. And I just started crying and explaining to them how difficult it was for me. And they were super supportive. But one of the things they told me was I had no idea. And I think about this a lot. And I'm like, a part of hyperhidrosis for me was hiding it. I wanted to hide it as much as I could. And I was really good at hiding it, that no one around me even knew what was going on. And I wanted people to know what was going on with me without me ever having to say it. But that's not like real life. People can't read your mind. And so me talking to my family about it opened up that discussion, and now they're more supportive. They understand, or I'm more willing to like talk to them when I'm having a difficult time about it, because that, you know, again, that conversation is open, which is what we're doing today, right? We're trying to open the conversation, have you guys join in and participate in the conversation, because that's what we need to do to progress in hyperhidrosis awareness and to make treatment for people and these conversations accessible to everybody.
And touching upon that point, how can we make people that are the viewers out there, how can we help them talk about and feel comfortable opening up about this topic?
I think it has to be what works for you, because what works for me may not work for you. And I've only been doing this for a year. I wasn't always someone who, is talking about sweating all the time. This was not
Mm-hmm.
me. And so I usually would start with like journaling or writing it down. If you don't feel comfortable talking about it yet, write it
Just writing
down
it.
and get those feelings out. And then you'll see like maybe a pattern of how you're feeling, or you'll see associations that you have with hyperhidrosis.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're someone that you trust or someone you confide in, just maybe talking to them a little bit about it. You don't have to be on social media to share your hyperhidrosis story. So that's why I recommend you doing it in the way that works best for you and what you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's a personal journey that you kind of have to decide on your own what you're comfortable with. And you just have to make that first step, whether it's writing it down or talking to someone or a medical professional.
Mm-hmm. And I think you've touched upon multiple aspects. I know that we kind of crossed a little bit about the improving of your overall like quality of life. But
Mhm.
how has, for example, advocating for hyperhidrosis and also using a treatment like iontophoresis, how has it
Mhm.
improved the quality of your life overall?
It is priceless to be here today and to see all these people here who just get it. I don't have to explain it. You guys just understand what we're going through, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through. And like it's just, I can't even maybe like put into words, but it's just so, it makes me happy to know that I'm not alone and that I don't have to constantly explain myself, because I can. That's the thing, like sometimes I'll post something and I'm like, oh no, like I don't know, like maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. And then people respond. I'm like, okay, like I'm not the only one. And it's just so gratifying to just be able to connect with people who get it and have this like sense of community. And it's allowed me, and you
Mm-hmm.
guys have given me like the motivation to continue talking about it, because I know I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of like my whole quality of life and even using iontophoresis, it's
Mm-hmm.
giving me like that time that I used to like giving that time to myself. And I know like the treatment itself is focusing
Mm-hmm.
on reducing sweat, but it really allowed me to regain a sense of hope and community with hyperhidrosis, because sometimes we just get so caught up in our sweating, life passes us by and
Yeah.
we miss these opportunities. And so when I had this opportunity with Dermadry, I'm like, I have to do it, I have to do it. And I'm so glad that I did, because here we are talking about it. I have dry underarms, I have dry hands right now. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't ask for anything better.
And I'm really happy, and I think the viewers are happy. They're sending you lots of love with sharing your story. And, it is about creating that safe space. And for the viewers out there, even if it is just through how to hyperhidrosis or with Dermadry as well, we want to create that safe space and that community to kind of advocate and speak about it. There are questions that are coming in. They want to know, the viewers want to know, do you have compensatory type of sweating?
I actually do not. I have heard that this can happen, or some people may experience this, but I have not. Just to be I sweat all over my body. So even my face, even my back.
Hmm.
The worst parts of my body that sweat are my hands, my feet, and my underarms. My face sweats quite a bit as well, but I have not seen an increase in sweating in my back, in my ankles, any other areas of my body. I have not seen compensatory sweating, thankfully.
Okay. That question came up a few times, so
Hmm.
we're really happy to hear that.
Hmm.
And I think the viewers are as well. I saw there's a few little hearts that came in. What do you think we have to do to normalize hyperhidrosis and get rid of that stigma when it comes to sweating? I know it's a bit difficult, but you could take
Yeah,
a moment to kind of get your thoughts.
I think it also it starts with yourself, obviously, and learning how to talk about your own experience, because my experience may be different than yours. You
Hmm.
may go to your family members and might not be as supportive. You may not have the support. And that's why we have this community as well, because we know that sweating can be minimalized as like, oh, it's just sweat. Don't worry about it. Or, oh, look, I'm sweating too. And it's like, no, you're not sweating like me, though. And so I think it's very easy for people to brush it off like it's not a big deal. And so finding your voice, number one, is important because you're the only one who's going to be able to tell your story. And number two, I think there just needs to be more education with primary doctors and specialists because a lot of us have to be, or at least in the United States, you have to be referred to a specialist oftentimes. And that starts with your primary doctor. And if your primary doctor is not educated about hyperhidrosis and the options there, then you're not going to get very far. And so I think it's an accumulation of stuff. Like right now, research is focused or has focused on the fact that it has a huge impact on people's lives and can be extremely debilitating. And now there's also research about certain treatments, right? But the other problem is it's not accessible to everybody. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things is that there are certain treatments out there for people, but it's not as accessible to people because insurance, cost, there's like a lot of other reasons, right, why it's not accessible. And so I think making things more available to people who want to try treatment, because I feel like everybody here is probably like, I need answers, I need to reduce my sweat. Everyone is so willing to try something, but may not have the opportunity to.
And these are all things that we're working on, even when it comes to, you know, the insurance aspect and all of those points. You know, we really want to build that community and trying to build that safe space and that it is affordable, that they are kind of, that they're able to use the treatments. And if they have questions, they're always that 24/7 support.
And it's important to understand that these things take time, like insurance, and like there's certain codes that have to be like set up so that when your insurance gets billed, it goes through properly. Because if it's not the right code, it won't go through. Like there's all these things and like administrative, like legal aspects of like behind the scenes that need to happen. And so that's why maybe it doesn't seem like the progress is happening, but it just, a lot of it just takes time.
Yes. And linking back now when you were speaking about, you know, the first time you spoke with your dermatologist, there is a question that came in specifically about this. They want to know, did he react well when you kind of opened up the conversation about, you know, your sweating? Did he kind of know what hyperhidrosis was? Did he know what kind of, where to bring you in treatments? These are all the questions that kind of just came in at once.
Yeah, so over 20 years ago when I was first officially diagnosed, I remember this, like the doctor said, we don't know why it happens and there's no cure. And there wasn't really much support other than that, or maybe telling me to try topicals like at the store. They didn't have samples there. So again, I was like 14 years old and I'm like, okay, so that's it? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm supposed to come to you for help and I wanted help. And I think a lot of treatment for hyperhidrosis is not just treating the sweating itself, but the psychological impact it has on our lives. You know, we talked about the personal, the social, our relationships, our jobs. It infiltrates every aspect of our life. And that's why I found therapy, I think, so amazing for myself, and the progress that I've made is because of therapy, because I needed that outlet to express what was going on with me and understand what was going on with me, because a lot of us, again, have maybe had this our entire lives. And when I was 4 years old, first starting with my sweating, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was going on with my body. I just knew that, oh, I can't climb the monkey bars. I just keep slipping, you know?
And, you know, I think opening up that conversation with the medical experts and then finding a solution is the best kind of route to help the person feel better, kind of diminish their anxieties. And they're able to, like you said, you'll be able to, using the treatments, you'll be able to kind of climb those monkey bars going forward, you know? You know, we are coming in the summer months now. What advice would you have, or any types of tips and tricks would you have for those who do suffer from hyperhidrosis?
That's a good one. If you want to try wearing sandals, just try it. I mean, I say that, and I say that like almost fearful as well, because I know, I mean, I have a story where once it was like, tried to wear sandals and my foot slipped out and I landed in mud, and it was just like this whole
Oh
scenario. And I
no.
was just like, of course, the one day I try to wear sandals and my feet are covered in mud. But I mean, you just kind of have to take those risks, and you just kind of have to, it's not a risk necessarily if you prepare yourself and you just continue to try. I think that's like the main thing. In terms of like summer tricks and tips, I like to wear tank tops so that,
Hmm.
if I'm not going to wear a long sleeve in the summer because I know, my shirt would have been drenched. But if I have a tank top, it might be a little wet, but not as wet. Um, Also having like a light sweater with you so that it
Hmm.
doesn't look weird that you're wearing like a sweater, but that you can still cover up if you need to. And then
Hmm.
in terms of like clothing for like your shorts or whatever, wear your
Hmm.
shorts that I always would wear. I won't wear sandals with my shorts. I'm going to wear sneakers, and sneakers are like in now. And so like you can just wear that naturally and have no questions. But I mean, tips and trips for summer, that's a good one. I should think about
Yeah.
that more.
And especially that you live in such a warm area. I
Yes.
mean, that's always something that always has to kind of like trickle back and think of, you know?
Hmm.
Um, oh my God, we would love to give a shout out to College Drop, who basically said that Dermadry did change their life. So we would love to kind of just shout that out. Thank you very much for sharing
Yay.
that with us. I know Kristen is also on that path, so thank you
Mhm.
very much for sharing that. Um, there is also another question that is coming in. You kind of gave us little tips and tricks on who was kind of in your path um, in the hyperhidrosis path, but
Mhm.
who are the ones that really supported you through your hyperhidrosis journey?
I want to start by saying International Hyperhidrosis Society was one of the first
Hmm.
resources that I would read constantly to get updates about hyperhidrosis. It was actually one of the only ones around growing up. And then obviously my family. I mean, once I shared with them what
Hmm.
my struggles were, they were super supportive and just constantly, allowing me to say what I needed to say and being understanding it and
Hmm.
just being again super supportive. And then I've learned from Dermadry. I mean, what I love about Dermadry, I'm not even kidding. This is great. But what I love about Dermadry is the support. Talk about support. Like I'm not kidding. I'm just like surprised at how accessible and easy it is to ask questions and get those answers. Like
Hmm.
I said, like in the middle of treatment, if I had a question, or at the beginning of my treatment, I got a very small blood blister on my finger, and I was like, oh shoot, like am I still gonna be able to do treatment? They said send me a photo. I send them a photo, and right away they're able to say yes or no, and they said yeah, it's fine. Just make sure again, as long as you're comfortable and it
Hmm.
doesn't hurt you, you can still do that and just maybe keep it out of the water a little bit. And I was able to continue treatment, didn't have to
Hmm.
skip a beat. And so just the fact that like I know that Dermadry was created by someone who has hyperhidrosis, that's another big one. Like supporting like this machine that like I just know they know what we're going through, and it was created by someone who understands what we're going through, and that just makes like a
Yeah.
world of a difference because they're just gonna get it. They're just gonna get it, and they have.
Yeah, and there are others in the Dermadry's kind of entourage as well that kind
Hmm.
of who do suffer of hyperhidrosis, either from mild to severe. And I think
Hmm.
that plays a role in really understanding you guys also because, for us, the ones that who do have it, we're able to
Hmm.
connect with you guys and build
Hmm.
that relationship. And with the customer support team, we kind of they're there 24/7 to help you guys
Hmm.
and respond your questions. And yeah, that was a great, they always are ready for those tips and tricks.
Hmm.
So also for the viewers out there, if you guys have any questions about anything, please feel free to contact them. They're 24/7 available and they'll be able to help you with any questions that you may have.
Yeah.
Linking back now, to the story that you were explaining about with the flip-flop,
Yes.
there was a question that came in
Okay.
asking what type of footwear do you actually recommend? So we know the flip-flop story, but
Hmm.
what is the comfortable like version when it comes to footwear? Can you still wear sandals also at the moment? That was another question
Hmm.
that came in. So there's kind of two questions in one. If you ever want me to repeat, please let me know.
Yeah. So the first one is like, what type of footwear do I prefer? So for work, I wear Asics. They're breathable, they're comfortable. That's kind of like my brand, I guess you would call it, that I would go to for work attire or for work shoes. And then for leisure shoes, it's kind of, I've always had an issue with finding the right white sneaker because it has to be leather. If I get a cloth, it's going to stain. And I've experienced that where you'll have the yellow little stain there. So finding like a leather-based, exterior for my white shoes is important. And then for everything else, like I wear Adidas, I wear just anything that I have like suede black shoes as well that I like to wear. I love sneakers, so like I can go all out on sneakers. And for me, it's an investment. It's always been an investment for me because I know I'm going to feel comfortable in them so I can have fun with it and change it up.
And now, we mentioned about like the not being able to kind of use the sandals, but now using the treatments, are you still able to use the sandals? How do you feel with that situation?
Yeah. I love that I can actually wear like I wore it the other day when I went out to go just do an errand. And it's always like this moment like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? And it's like I kept looking down at my feet and I'm like checking it and it was like totally fine. I'm like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And it's just like amazing to feel like that freedom of like, I can wear sandals now. I mean, I think there's days too where like you have to realize your body needs to sweat. Sweating is normal. When you sweat excessively like we do, that's when things kind of get a little tricky. But like if I'm working out and my hands and feet are sweating, I mean, that is normal. You're supposed to be sweating. If I'm laying in the sun tanning, I'm probably going to sweat. So what I like about Dermadry is that I can do the treatment and I'm going to normally sweat like I should, which we all should. And when I did other treatments like oral medication, that was cut out, and that was causing other issues for me. And so I think what's important to realize is this treatment allows you to still live your life and still allows you to sweat when you need to, which is important because you don't want other issues to arise.
Thank you very much for sharing that story. We're so happy to hear. We kind of want to give also a small little shout out to Feminine with HH. They always kind of said, always dress like a tomboy. So that's kind of that little going back when it comes to the shoes, going back to the running shoes. But yeah, that was kind of common towards us. But yeah, when it comes to the sneakers and all of that, I think it's really important, and footwear is important, especially when when it comes to hyperhidrosis. When it comes now, the clothing specifically, do you feel comfortable wearing any color clothing now that you're using the treatments, the Dermadry?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. I love black to protect my sweat, but I've always been someone who's like, I want color, I want color, I want color. So if I was gonna wear color regardless, I always had a sweater that would cover anything that I needed to cover for my sweat. And so now I just realized, I knew that possibly, normally I would probably wear a long sleeve with the sweater on top of it, but now I know I can wear it without it. And so I actually have a lot of color in my closet. I always have enjoyed buying things of color. And I think just, again, it comes back to you have to decide how much energy you want to put into certain things. And for me, wearing clothes is also a form of expression of who I am. And so I love wearing color and it makes me happy. And so just embracing that and finding, what works best for you is important. But I've always been a color person. The thing that I will say that I've been brave enough to try is colored pants. So right now I'm wearing black ones, but the other day I went out and I decided to wear these green pants, and I'm worried about that as well, and I did it anyways. And it's just kind of one of those things, again, that Dermadry just allowed me that
extra confidence.
Yeah, exactly. To just try it.
That's amazing. And linking back now with the confidence and linking back when you were going into the journal writing, there was a question that came in how has hyperhidrosis impacted, that your mental health aspect, your anxiety? We know now, with using the treatments,
Mhm.
it got a lot better, you got more
Mhm.
confident, but they want to know how it actually impacted.
So, I mean, that's a good question because I think it's a mixture of things. The treatment obviously helps with, you don't realize how much you're thinking about sweating until you're not
Mm-hmm.
sweating and you're like, oh, I'm not thinking about sweating. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really eye-opening to be on the other side of that and like
Mm-hmm.
see yourself in that perspective. Because again, you get that tunnel vision, right? When I'm not sweating, I'm like, sometimes I don't realize the stuff that was like so consumed about hyperhidrosis. And so having the opportunity to like for this treatment and the impact it's had on my life is really just another form of therapy for me. I
Mm-hmm.
go to therapy, I talk about what's going on, but it's also like I was so focused on my sweat being reduced versus on how regardless it impacts my life. Because even when I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sweating, because I've lived with this for so long, there are consequences of living with a condition that's untreated. And I
Mm-hmm.
have generalized anxiety. So all the time that I was sweating, I was feeling not secure in my
Mm-hmm.
environment. I associated my sweating with not
Mm-hmm.
feeling secure, and then everything around me becomes like a threat or something that's
Mm-hmm.
not safe. So I've associated those scenarios, everything in my life, with, something that wasn't safe, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so generalized anxiety is a condition, where essentially you everything becomes a trigger, even when
Yeah.
it's not. So having treatment and being dry is important, and it
Mm-hmm.
allows you to see like, okay, these are the things I need to work on now. But it's also important because you have to address the issues that maybe you've been ignoring because we're just so good at hiding it sometimes even to ourselves.
Exactly. And there was another question that came in specifically on how hyperhidrosis actually affected your femininity side.
Hmm. So I was always concerned about like in high school going to dances and proms and having to
Mm-hmm.
wear a dress. And those dresses are not made for sweating, like I can't wear a big jacket over, or I felt like I couldn't wear a big jacket over my dress
Mm-hmm.
because none of my friends were wearing a big jacket over their dress.
Mm-hmm.
And so just feeling uncomfortable wearing dresses, like even, I'm engaged now and plan to get married. And I never, like, I wasn't the girl that was like, oh, my dream wedding, my dream dress, because that was like, I was terrified of that. Like, oh shoot, I
Mm-hmm.
have to be wearing a dress and this and that. And then
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it my own. Like, maybe I'm a little
Exactly.
bit inspired, but like, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. I'm probably not going to wear heels. I'm going to wear sneakers. And so just making it your own, like you don't have to like fit into this box of like what maybe society is telling you what to do. Just be
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And doing that, it's not easy, of course, but it's what makes me feel comfortable and my
Mm-hmm.
best.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And I think that's an
Mhm.
amazing point. Just before we move forward, just to let the viewers know, we do have a 5 to 8 minutes left. So we kind of just want to wrap up the
Mhm.
questions. So please send those in. There is a question that is linking with what we were speaking about. Can you go for pedicures and manicures now using the treatments?
I haven't gone just because of COVID and things are slowly opening
Mm-hmm.
up. But I have been wanting to go do that. I usually just, in the past, I've just done them from home type thing, where I've
Mm-hmm.
used like a certain brand of whatever nail thing that I would do. But I am curious to go back and see like what happens.
And like linking now with COVID, how has that impact your hyperhidrosis journey?
I mean, I think some of the things that come out of COVID are like really amazing for people with hyperhidrosis. Like not having to shake people's hands, of course, that's like number one. Like that's pretty cool. And then, just people are 6 feet distance, like that's cool too,
Mhm.
because I hated when people would like get too close to me and my face is sweating all over and I'm like, okay, like I need some personal space. Yeah, exactly. So little things like that I feel like are super helpful. And then, if I'm not feeling up to it to go and get food, now there's like so many more options to order food from home and even do groceries from home. So if my anxiety is like
Mhm.
really high that day, oh, I'll
Mhm.
just do it, online. And all those online options are super easy as
Yeah,
well.
easy and effective too.
Mhm.
Linking now with your journey with hyperhidrosis, did you face any type of bullying or teasing growing up?
I remember, I mean, to think about it now, it's kind of silly, but I do remember like being told, ew, you have sweaty hands, and ew, like, why are your hands sweaty? Like, I would never have a girlfriend that has sweaty hands. Like, just little comments that people would say. And I've even had people come up to me and like wipe my sweat off for me, and I was like, no, 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 no. Like, this is
Oh
like my
no.
little personal space here. Like, I know that I'm sweating. I'm already uncomfortable with my sweat. So like them, maybe touching my face or trying to wipe my sweat away was
Mm.
like a little too far. But I would wear like really baggy uh jackets and hoodies and I would pull my sleeves up and I was just like kind of like more timid, I guess you would say. So
Mm.
other than like the little comments, I never really got a lot of bullying per se, but I'm a short person too, so if anything, I got more comments about me being short than my sweating.
Same here. I always emphasize the point four. When you're 5'1" point something, I'm always like point four. Emphasize.
Exactly.
Totally get that side.
And five
Um,
flat, I got you.
now there is another question that comes in. Are there any um, other tips and tricks when it comes for the people that are at home and that would like to, for example, even use the Dermadry device at home? Um, what would be some like the lasting tips for them?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I would say take advantage of the time of you doing treatment. I feel like there might be this idea that you're doing treatment and like that's all you're able to do, but you can do work while doing the treatment. If you want to catch up on a show, you can watch a show. I like to do
Hmm.
emails or whatever work I need to do on my computer. I take advantage of that time. And it's kind of nice because instead of setting like 2 hours aside to do treatment and then that, I can do them at the same time. And I don't need to be focused on my treatment because machine's doing all the work. So I can just focus on the work that I need to do. Or,
Hmm.
I started reading and it was like that time that I can just read. And it's just like these little times again that I'm making for myself that is not just about reducing my sweat, but like just my mental health overall.
Hmm. And I think those are actually great points when it comes, especially with mental health.
Hmm.
Um, Thank you guys very much for all the questions that are coming in. Before we do end off, we have a question and kind of we want to know, and the viewers want to know, what are some inspiring words that you could give for those that do suffer from hyperhidrosis? And they really want to know, does Dermadry really work for the treatments of hyperhidrosis?
Dermadrive works for me. It works. I think it's difficult. Someone who's tried it all to invest your time and your energy and have like that faith that this treatment's going to work because we've tried probably 100 of things and then they don't work and it's really heartbreaking because then you're like okay now I'm at square one and there's treatment that I've had before where I was willing to go through pain. I was willing to risk my health to do
Mm-hmm.
that in order to have dryness,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to stop it because I knew that it would be I wouldn't have anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that there's options out there and working with your provider, working with Dermadry to change your regimen, to work with what will help you is
Mm-hmm.
important. And also a reminder that like I haven't always been like this. I haven't always been someone who's openly talking about hyperhidrosis. So if you're still not comfortable talking about it, that's totally normal. Again, you don't have to be on social media to just be sharing your story. I just chose this for myself. But there's millions of people that are experiencing exactly what you're going through. So if you need somebody, you have somebody here, you have somebody in this community. And it's important to reach out to those people because, again, like, we get what you're going through. We're not going to shame you. We're going to embrace you. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing just to be able to have this conversation right now.
Yeah, and I really thank you for coming on board today. Sharing your story with us and the viewers, and I think building that safe space and sharing your story also, we really appreciate that. So we really want to thank you on behalf of Dermadry, and we also want to thank the viewers out there for coming in today and sharing their story. If you guys would love to, listen, you could always check out her blog when it comes to hyperhidrosis. Oh, Kristen, I think you might be frozen, but
How did I
I don't.
freeze?
Oh, okay, you're back.
There we go.
Yay!
Okay.
So for those, please go check out her hyperhidrosis blog. It's How to Hyperhidrosis. You can link her right away after our call today. So thank you everyone again for coming in. And if you guys have any questions about your Dermadry treatments, please also come up to us. We have our 24/7 customer support line. So we want to thank you all, and it was a pleasure to finally get to meet you, Kristen.
Finally get to see you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you for sending so much love, and we'll speak very, very soon.
Yes, thank you.
Wishing you lots of health.
Bye.
Bye. And wait, let it record now. Sure you want to end and not.